13th, 2021. And we're going to be talking about how to simply communicate complex ideas. And I think this is something that is important for everyone because there are going to be times that communicating something that has some complexity, or whether it's technical or scientific, might be a challenge. So you have to find a way to make people understand and get people excited about your topic as you are without dumbing it down. So first, let's get started with our access and accommodations announcement. Aaliyah, do you want to take that?
Sure. Access and accommodations. Your experience here at Southern New Hampshire University is important to us. It is our policy and practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If there are aspects of instruction or course design that present barriers to accessibility, please notify the Online Accessibility Center OAC as soon as possible at 866-305-9430. You can also email at oac@snhu.edu or visit the Online Accessibility Center website.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry. I'm a fast reader. I'm sorry.
Wow. Well, that was a record time to read the access and accommodation. Oh my goodness. Are you guys seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Is it big enough on the screen? You can make the pod bigger on your own computer. All right, so let me get started. I apologize. Thank you for your patience. So today's meeting is all about communicating complex ideas in ways that will make people understand, simplifying your topic, your language, whether it's in a written presentation or if you're presenting live. Because I know we've all been in meetings where someone was saying, the presenter droned on and on and on, and you had absolutely no idea what was going on. So we want to make sure that you are skilled enough to know how to keep your audience engaged, how to simplify things, how to eliminate the jargon in your speech so that people can understand and stay with you when you're giving your presentation. So first and foremost, the thing you need to consider is your audience and their familiarity with the topic. You need to understand their current level of understanding before you present the information you want them to know. So you have to consider who it is you're talking to, what do they already know about your subject, what do they need to know, and what are the gaps you need to fill for them along the way. Because I know when we do a presentation, sometimes we make assumptions about our audience's knowledge. So if you're talking with your coworkers, everyone knows your industry jargon, your functional jargon. But if you're speaking to a wider audience, they may not know that. And a lot of times, taking that audience-centric approach, what you're going to do is, before you start drafting that presentation or that email or that meeting agenda, you have to remember that you are the mentor. You are Yoda in this situation.
I love
And your
that.
audience is with you. And you've got to impart to your audience really important things in a way that they understand. So like I said, most importantly, The acronym is KWIRWTS. Know what you really want to say. And Albert Einstein, at least this is a quote attributed to him, say, if you can't explain it simply, you do not understand it well enough. So instead of throwing out a lot of the big words, think about it, your audience, as how would you explain this to a 5-year-old? How would you explain this to your grandmother? Would you use these words? Would you use this example? You probably wouldn't. You'd probably simplify it quite a bit. And that's a really important piece to making sure your audience understands, because it's not just about you delivering a message, you hitting send. It's about understanding, and that's what communication is all about, is understanding. So one way to make things easier to understand is to use simile and metaphor. And what's the difference between simile and metaphor? Similes use words like or as to compare things. Life is like a box of chocolates. That's a simile. That baby is as cute as a button. That's a simile. So you see the word like, you see the word as. Whereas metaphor is directly stating a comparison. He's become a shell of a man. My life is an open book. Maybe you're a firework. So in simile, you're using as or like to compare one thing to another. And in metaphor, you're making that direct comparison. If you've got numbers in your presentation, you've got data, you want to be able to translate it into things that people understand. So how big is it? If you're talking about, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie Armageddon, where there's this big asteroid coming towards Earth, and the scientists at NASA are on the phone with the president, and he says, what are we dealing with, and how big is it? And one of the scientists starts saying, well, it's 900 million square meters, whatever, and the other guy jumps in and says, Mr. President, it's the size of Texas. So you want to translate numbers into things that people can readily understand. So if you're talking about how big something is, well, compared to what? And if you need to make that type of translation, you can always use the phrase, to put that into perspective, it would take 10,000 Earths to fill one sun. And of course, that's way off. It's much, much bigger than that. But to give that type of translation from something that people aren't familiar with to something that they are familiar with. And I laughed earlier when Aaliyah gave the access and accommodation message, because she'd sped that so quickly. So one of the tips is to slow down. Most people deliver their information way too fast. So test yourself, deliver your message at about 100 words a minute. That's at a speed that people will remember. And again, the goal of communication is for people to understand. So make sure that you are delivering at a speed that people can understand and will remember. Now I just took a pause. And after a few seconds, you guys were like, what's going on? Well, sometimes when you need to recapture the audience's attention, it's good to take a pause. Because people are very, we're thinking about a million different things, If you take a pause, people will realize that you've stopped droning on and on. They'll look up from their phone to say, hey, what's going on? And then they'll re-engage. So that is a very powerful way to make sure that you are keeping people's attention. So you want to pay attention to what the audience feedback is giving you. Is everyone's head down looking at their phone? Are they talking amongst themselves? Or you need to capture their attention again. So take a pause. Do you like how I did that?
Yes.
And the next way to keep people's attention, grab people's attention and keeps people's attention is to be interactive. So you can ask a question, you can give a poll, ask for a volunteer, use a relevant prop, or you can do an experiment so that the whole audience can participate and learn something, learn a complex topic very simply. So we'll do that now. So if you're able, take your thumb and your forefinger, make a circle, and line up something on the wall, whether it's a clock or a doorknob, just something that will fit in that circle, and look at it. Center it within that circle with both eyes open. Got it? Now, close your right eye and open it. Now close your left eye and open it. Now, chances are, when you closed one of your eyes, the object moved from the circle. Is that right?
Very right.
Mics are open, or type in the chat and let me know. So, whichever eye that the eye that you closed, where the object moved, that's your weaker eye. The eye that was open and the object stayed within that circle, that's your dominant eye. Now, I'm not a scientist, but ocular dominance is not something that I am well versed in. But I just gave you a demonstration to help you understand that concept. And I think pretty much everyone got that, right? And why is that important? Well, if you are a photographer, eye dominance is important because you want to use your dominant eye looking through that viewfinder to more accurately get a representation of what you're shooting in terms of photography. If you play sports, well, you're going to want your dominant eye to be facing the ball. If you're competitive, something like, archery or things like that. So eye dominance is quite important. And so I've just shown you, and you've just done a little experiment and learned something about yourself if you hadn't learned it before, about your eye dominance. Now, eye dominance is correlated to hand dominance. So I am left-handed, and I am also left eye dominant. It's rare that, your handedness does not correlate to your dominant eye, but it does happen for the most part. So that was one way to keep the audience engaged, let them learn a complex topic, and let them walk away with something that they didn't know before. And you want to use multiple approaches, right? Because people learn in lots of different ways. Some people are more visual, some people are auditory, some people actually need to do stuff. So if you're using similes and metaphors, you're giving people good visuals in their head. If you're giving them an experiment to do, that's very tactile. For those people that learn by doing things, they'll learn that very well. So another experiment we can do, close your eyes, count count to 3 in your head. How did you do it? Did you hear your voice counting to 3? Did you use your fingers or your toes, count your toes? Did you move your tongue across your teeth? Did you see numbers flipping through your head? Like, there are multiple ways that people do that. How did you do it, Aaliyah?
I said it out loud very fast.
Very fast.
Very fast.
Okay.
Like how I did always see.
Right. So slow down. So use multiple approaches to make sure that you are bringing all of your audience along with you, that you're not leaving anyone behind. Now, you always want to make sure that you have presence, that if you're standing up in front of the audience, that you're not just standing there looking down at your notes, reading monotonely, Bueller, Bueller. Change your vocal inflection. Be confident, be passionate. Let that shine through. That will help people pay attention more and certainly have an interest in trying to understand what it is you're saying, what you're trying to communicate. And then you want to end strong. So what is it you want people to walk away knowing? What's the one thing, top 2 things that you want people to walk away remembering? Did you remember your call to action? What is it that you want people to do after your presentation? What is it you want people to do once they've read this email? And one tip that I learned, it's not on these slides, but one tip that I learned, someone taught me a long time ago, is if you have to give a presentation, let's say you're giving a 10-minute talk, things go wrong, right? Sometimes there's technical difficulties, as we had at the beginning of this presentation. Sometimes a presenter goes long, right? So things happen. Maybe they got started late for whatever reason, and your 10-minute talk, or let's say it's 15 minutes, gets cut down to 5. So always practice the length of whatever your talk is, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But then condense it. If you're giving a 30-minute talk, condense it to a 15-minute talk. What do you want people to walk away knowing? What happens if you're cut down to 5 minutes? What do you want people to walk away knowing? Do you want them to contact you? Do you want them to go to your website? What is the one thing, if you can't do anything else, what is the one thing you want them to walk away with? And make sure that you're able to deliver that in 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. That way you're prepared for anything. So had the presentation if I wasn't able to share my screen, I've got my notes. So I can give this presentation without the actual PowerPoint on the screen. It's certainly less engaging for you as it's a virtual meeting, but I could give this presentation without the actual presentation on the screen. So you always want to have your backup ready. And last but not least, you always want to remember to thank everyone. So thank you. Thank you for coming to our meeting today. That's the end of the formal presentation, and I'm sure some of you may have some questions or some ideas If you've had to communicate some complex ideas, what's worked for you?